Hello everyone and welcome to the Valcori Demo. In this video we'll show you both from a buyer and a supplier perspective what you can do with Valcori and how it can improve your tendering operations. Now as you can see, Valcori is an online application. You just need to go to a website and sign in with a email address and a password. Once you do that, you are logged into your account and you get to the homepage of Valcori. Before we dive into the tendering specifics, I wanted to show you here on the top right that if you click on your name, this banner appears. First of all, you can see, okay, this is my profile. This is my personal profile. And then you can see that I'm part of multiple teams. So it's possible within Valcori to set up multiple teams. That can be, for example, different spending categories like indirect spend, ingredients, packaging, and so on. But it can perfectly also be different countries. So if you want to have Belgium and a tendering team in Netherlands and a tendering team in Switzerland, you can perfectly chop that up into different teams. So a person can belong to different teams. You choose yourself who has access to which team. So it's a very flexible access setup. Now, if we close this, you can see a couple of things here. Now, this is the whole tendering application, but before we dive into that, I just want to show you this here. So here you see 6 suppliers. We do have in Valcori a very basic supplier management system, and that's what you see in front of you. Here you can maintain a contact list of suppliers. That means you can have first name, last name, the company they work for, and the email address. So that's a list that you can keep here. You can add people here, you can remove people here. This will come back later in the demo, but it's a first step in sending out tenders. If we go back to the overview, you see the tender overview, and what you see in the gray area here is a tender, and in the tender you have multiple requests. Now within Valcori we always see a tender as one or multiple rounds or requests, and it's a bit of triage system. So you can have, for example, 10 suppliers in your first round, and in the second round you only maintain 7 suppliers, and you go down according to how you progress. You can choose how many rounds you have. So if you want to have only 1 request, that's perfectly possible. If you want to have 7 requests, it's perfectly possible. As you can see here, we have 5 requests here. We're going from a round 0, which is the acceptance of the terms and conditions, to a round 4, which is the best and final offer. Now in this overview screen, you can already see a couple of things. You can see all your rounds, and you can also see the start date of that round, and you can see the end date. So this is the deadline for suppliers. You can also see the status. You can see if it's finished already, if the deadline was reached or not. It's, for example, live or in draft, so you can see the status of that request. And you can already see the status of the suppliers as well. So how many people were invited, how many people have published already, how many people have canceled. So you have like a first glance already of what are my suppliers doing, how far are they already, and do I need to chase them or not? So that's already what you see here in this first overview. Now in this overview, you also see members. And if I click members, you will see 2 things. Number 1 is you see those team members. And as I mentioned, when we have the drop down with the teams, those are the people that have access to the team. So they see all the tenders in the team. But you can also add specifically people that will work on this specific tender. So it could be that you have someone from quality or from legal that you want to have a look at this specific tender. Then you can simply give them access to this tender, and they will be able to look together with you to this tender. Now, a couple of things you can do here. So we have a tender setup. If you click add new request, you can add 2 types of requests. You either have a questionnaire, which is an RFI, request for information, or you can send out a sheet. A sheet is something like an RFQ, but you can use it for any numerical information or data that you want to get. It's more of a table format. The first type of request that you can add is the questionnaire. You can see it here at this icon. We have a draft questionnaire prepared here, and if I click on it, it will open it. Now what you see here is very intuitive and simple. It's a list of questions that you can ask. You have two types of questions. You either have multiple choice questions, that's what you see here, or you can have open questions like the one here. Now, this is a very easy to work with. You can simply add questions. If you click here, it adds a question, multiple choice or open question. You can drag these questions. You can delete those questions easily here. So you can delete this question as well. It's quite easy. Or you can even duplicate. So if you hit this button here, it will simply duplicate the question and you have that question for a second time. So very intuitive to work with. Very easy. Now you see a couple of things here, these percentages. So we have an automatic scoring system built into Valcori based on the weight that you give to a question and the score that you give to a certain answer. So to make that very concrete, I click edit question. This is the weight that you give to the question. So the more weight you give, the higher percentage of that question. So the greater the percentage compared to the other questions it becomes. And you can give a score to the questions. Now, if you save changes, you see it will have a big weight to that one, and you can see the scores here. For the open questions, you can also give a weight to the question. So you see you can give a weight. You can, of course, you can't give a score to the answer because it's an open answer. So we don't know what the answer will be, but you will see, and I'll come back later on to it, you can give a score afterwards. So after your supplier has given their answer, you can score it, and then it will be added to the total score of the supplier. So that's basically how the questionnaire works like. Now I'll show you how it looks like when it's finished. So here you see we also have a questionnaire, and in that questionnaire the status is live, and we already have 3 suppliers that have responded. 2 of them are still invited. So if I click on it, this is a live questionnaire. It's the exact same layout, so you see exact same things. Of course, you can't edit it anymore because it's live already. But you can do a couple of things here that you can't do in the draft questionnaire. Number one is that you can follow up your suppliers. So what you see here is that we have invited 5 suppliers. 3 of them have already published their answers. And if I click on details, I see when they accepted and when they published their answers. And I can also see all the company information, like VAT numbers and address and contact person and so on. So that's what you can see if they published already. If you have, for example, an active or an invited supplier, you can see the same details. But the nice thing about this is that you can also send a reminder here. So if you want to send an invitation reminder, they will get an automatic email and they will be reminded of the fact that they were invited, and they should have to accept or reject it. That's a supplier overview. This is really powerful for follow-up. So you can always see in which stage the suppliers are, and you can also automatically chase them with suppliers if they didn't answer yet. Now, if I go to report function, we have 3 suppliers that already responded, so that already provided their answers. And in the report function, you can basically see all those answers and start comparing those answers. Now, how does that work? Here on the left, you see a summary. So we're now looking at the summary of all suppliers. And here you see per question, so this is question 1. Per question, you see what each supplier has answered. So these are open questions, so they had an open text field that they could answer, and these are multiple choice questions. So here you see the answers that they gave for each multiple choice question. They gave a certain answer. I'll come back to the red flag in a second. That's a separate thing. Now, the multiple choice questions are automatically scored. So depending on the answer that they chose, they get an automatic score. That's something we've set in the setup. For the open question scoring, you can see here, these are the answers to the open questions. You can score them yourself. So afterwards you can say, okay, this looks like a good answer. This looks like an okay answer. And this is a super good answer. You can choose the scores, and you will see automatically when I click it, it automatically recalculates the total score. Now, for some of them, you see red flags. So I can also go to an individual supplier. So I only want to see the answers of Stora Enso for example. And you see that there is a red flag here. Now, what does that mean? In the setup of questions, you can also set red flag answers. So you can say, well, if that supplier gives a certain answer that is totally unacceptable, you give a red flag, and then you know that they gave an answer that was unacceptable, and that is flagged. Also in the report, you can then immediately see this is a red flag answer. For example, this one, we are involved in lawsuits or litigations, which is a red flag, and you can see it then in the report. So very easy here to compare answers, to see everything that all suppliers provided. Super intuitive and easy to score their open questions as well. From here, you can also export. So if you click the export button here, it downloads you an Excel file. In that Excel file, you have all data. So all weights, all answers, all questions, all suppliers. So that you can basically play around with it as much as you want. And you can also create your own reports if you would like. Going back to tenders now. Now the second type of request that we have is a sheet, which you can use for RFQs, for example. So we had the questionnaire, which is this icon, and we also have the sheets here. So if you have a sheet, I'll show you. You have one draft and one live. Same principles apply here. So I'll show you the draft one. I'll open it. So it's basically a small Excel, I would say, in the tool. You can, of course, still use Excel, and I'll show it a bit later in documents. So you can perfectly send Excel files to suppliers as well. The difficulty with that often is that they tend to mess it up, or they break it, or they do things that they shouldn't be doing. With this built-in platform, you can basically restrict them in what they can do. So you can make columns and you can make rows. And per column, you can decide if this is open for input for the supplier, or if it's only for info. So if it's for info, they can't edit it, they can't do anything with it. They can only complete those fields that they have input access to. You can even decide to hide some columns. So if you, for example, have a column with your current pricing that you definitely don't want to show with your suppliers, you can choose to hide it. And then if you hide it, your supplier can't see it. So it feels a lot like Excel. You can even copy paste things from Excel into here. Once you put this live, it's a bit the same principle. I'll go back to the tender overview and I go to a sheet that is live here. The same thing, you can follow up the status of your suppliers, so you can see which status they have. That's one thing. And what you can do secondly, if you go to the report, you can see what everyone has answered. So here you see Smurfit Kappa has answered with a price offer, and they give all the information. The same for Tetra Pak. You have all in one place. You see all price information here based on the file that they sent to you. Now, in case you say, I don't want to use this, I have my own Excel files, which are quite complex. In the whole platform, you can always exchange documents. So here, if you click on documents, and I'll go back maybe to tenders to show you. Here you also have documents. If you click documents, you can upload documents yourself that you can send to your suppliers. And the suppliers can, of course, also upload documents. So it's perfectly possible to exchange PDFs, Excels, or whatever documents you want to exchange. We've made it also as easy as possible so that if you want to preview it, you simply click on it. You have a full preview of that document. You can download it, you can delete it, and so on. So it's very intuitive to use. And it's very easy to exchange documents with your suppliers. Last thing I would like to show is the chat function. So throughout the whole buyer-supplier journey and your whole tendering journey, you can also communicate with your suppliers, of course. So you have the potential to automatically send reminders, to follow up their status, and so on. If you do want to have one-to-one chats with your suppliers, you can click on chats. If you click on chats, you see a list of your suppliers. And if you then click on a supplier, you can see you can exchange chats with them. So you can send chats, you can send additional documents to individual suppliers, you can have separate discussions. So there's a full chat function included, also with attachments. that you can use to communicate with your suppliers. So all in all, we try to make it a very pragmatic tool, very intuitive, so it's easy to use both for external stakeholders like suppliers and others, but also internal stakeholders. So that you can also have the quality team and the legal team so that they can all have a say and have a look at it while you're working on it. And of course, it's a full communication platform. So there is a chat function, everything, all communication with suppliers is handled via here, so that you can basically remove all your emails and email management and Excel management from your tendering journey.